Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a musical giant, right? Someone who didn't just play notes, but painted sonic riddles, whispered these profound truths through his saxophone.
Yeah.
That's who we're diving into today, Wayne Shorter. A jazz saxophonist, composer, musical philosopher. I mean, his voice was so original, so enduring.
Absolutely.
He really redefined what it meant to be a jazz artist. Over 60 years.
And what's truly fascinating, I think, is how his entire approach, his whole musical journey was this continuous exploration. It never stopped.
Always searching.
Exactly. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, you see how his work just transcended genres. You know, it shaped generations of musicians.
Yeah.
Left behind this unique creative blueprint. So our mission here in this deep dive is to really distill the key insights from our sources, to understand his unparalleled legacy and his artistic philosophy.
Okay, so where do we start? His origins, maybe. I found some really intriguing stuff in the sources about his early life.
Yeah, Newark, New Jersey, right, 1933.
That's it. And the detail that grabbed me was his childhood. He grew up drawing superheroes and listening to classical music.
Yeah.
Before jazz was even really on his radar.
That's interesting. So jazz came later.
Yeah, in high school.
Yeah.
That's when he discovered it and picked up the tenor saxophone. But what's striking is when he hits the New York scene in the late 50s.
Which was bustling then, right? Lots of players.
Totally. So many saxophonists trying to sound like the greats, Bird, Coltrane, but Shorter. He immediately stood out. His playing, it just had this distinct sense of space, a mystery to it.
A cinematic feel, almost.
Exactly, a cinematic imagination. He just wasn't trying to sound like anybody else from the get-go.
And that early uniqueness, that's really the thread you can follow through his entire career, isn't it?
Seems like it.
He wasn't just, technically brilliant, though he certainly was. He approached music with this deep intellectual curiosity, always pushing boundaries.
Redefining possibilities.
Yeah, redefining what jazz could even be. He was never, ever content to just stand still, which, over decades, that's incredibly rare.
So how did that ascent begin? He joined some pretty serious heavyweights early on, Art Blakey's Jazz Messengers.
Right, a legendary band. And he wasn't just a sideman for long.
No, he quickly became their chief composer, a key figure shaping their hard bop sound.
But even then, in those early compositions, you mentioned hearing hints of his future.
Yeah, definitely. The melodies already had these twists you didn't expect, and the harmonies, they sort of drifted into ambiguity sometimes,
Yeah.
not always resolving neatly.
That's a great point, because hard bop often had these really complex, fast chord changes, right? But Shorter, even then, he's starting to write lines that imply something broader harmonically, hints of playing outside, maybe, using tones that just hang there, keeping you guessing.
So do you think that background, the classical music, the drawing, did that feed into that imagination?
I suspect it did, yeah. The classical side probably gave him that deep understanding of structure, harmony, even dissonance. And the superheroes, maybe that fueled the storytelling aspect, crafting narratives through sound, even if it wasn't conscious.
That makes sense. And that foundation, it leads him to this really pivotal move in 1964.
Joining Miles Davis, the second great quintet.
Exactly. And that band, often credited with pioneering modal jazz, it feels like the perfect canvas for Shorter's kind of exploration.
Totally. His compositions often had these static harmonic landscapes, which opened up so much freedom for melodic improvisation, a real shift from the rapid bebop changes.
He really was the quiet architect of that band, as the sources put it.
Yeah, absolutely. And think of the tunes he brought in. Nefertiti, Fall,
Footprints, iconic.
Iconic, yeah. And that period just cemented his reputation, not just as a player, but as a truly visionary composer.
He showed how you could get this deep emotional resonance without always relying on traditional chord progressions.
Which fundamentally changed modern jazz, no question.
So after that groundbreaking work with Miles, he doesn't just rest, right? He charts entirely new territories again.
He co-founds Weather Report, early 70s, with Joe Zawinul.
And that sound,
Wow.
they just blew things open,
Yeah.
fusing jazz with everything.
Rock energy, funk grooves, global textures.
But keeping that jazz sophistication, the improvisation, it was just a groundbreaking synthesis.
And while Zawinul was often maybe the more visible front person, the sources really emphasized Shorter's crucial role, giving the band its balance, texture, and soul.
He was the anchor.
Yeah, exactly. Providing that compositional weight, that gravitas, that kept it from just being, fusion noodling.
And this is also when he starts playing more soprano sax.
And really reshaped its role in contemporary jazz. Showed it could be just as lyrical, just as expressive as the tenor.
You hear that on albums like Mysterious Traveler.
Heavy weather.
Right. They brought jazz into totally new spaces, but like you said, without sacrificing the artistry.
It does make you wonder, though, if he was the quiet architect and Zawinul often led, how did he maintain his own voice, his influence?
That's a really good question. I think the sources suggest it was just the sheer power and originality of his musical ideas. They were so compelling, they just naturally shaped the group's direction. But his genius, it went way beyond just playing or even composing in a technical sense. What really set Shorter apart was his philosophy.
Yeah.
This idea that composition wasn't just a technical exercise. For him, it was storytelling without words.
I love that phrase.
Me too. His pieces often feel like sonic riddles, maybe, or parables open to interpretation.
Do you even see it in the titles, right? They invite curiosity.
Totally. Things like infinize, deluge, schizophrenia,
Yeah.
they make you lean in.
Exactly. He wasn't aiming for neat, tidy resolutions. His harmonies often suggested emotion rather than resolution.
Can you unpack that a bit? How did that work musically?
Well, unlike, say, traditional jazz where tunes often resolve clearly back to the home key, Shorter might use suspended chords or unexpected voicings, chords that just hang there. It leaves this sense of lingering tension or ambiguity.
So it keeps the listener engaged in the story.
Precisely. It evokes an emotional journey, not just a simple arrival. You hear that all over his classic albums as a leader, Speak No Evil, Night Dreamer. Yeah. They're just filled with that kind of drama, that introspection. Which brings up another key point from the sources. How he used silence.
Silence is in punctuation.
Exactly. It wasn't just empty space. It was deliberate, like a breath, allowing a phrase to resonate or building anticipation, like a pregnant pause in a really powerful speech.
That idea of intentional space, it's so powerful. And it feels connected to something deeper in his work too, doesn't it?
The spiritual side.
Yeah, that deep spiritual and philosophical current. He practiced Nichiren Buddhism for most of his adult life.
And that belief in growth through challenge, music as a tool for inner development.
Right. And I was really struck by that quote attributed to him, "The only thing that's new is you." What do you take that to mean in his context?
Well, I think it means that real innovation, true originality, it doesn't come from chasing trends or copying others. It comes from within.
From your own unique perspective.
Exactly. Continuously shedding old assumptions, letting your own experience filter through the music. And that faith, it definitely seemed to imbue his sound with this sense of searching.
Yeah, you can hear that.
Which meant he rarely chased trends. He wasn't looking outward for the next big thing. He was exploring his inner landscape and translating that into sound.
It explains why even in interviews, the sources say he was often elusive and poetic.
Right. More interested in big ideas than, simple opinions. He created with the spirit of a painter, unafraid of abstraction.
Which is why he never sounded like anyone else, even when he was playing with basically everyone.
Oh, the collaborations. That list is just incredible.
It really reads like a map of modern music, doesn't it? I mean, Joni Mitchell.
His soprano on her records is just haunting.
Absolutely ethereal. And then Steely Dan, Carlos Santana, Milton Nascimento.
And of course, his decades-long partnership with Herbie Hancock.
Including that amazing acoustic album, 1+1. There's the two of them.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is how he brought this elegance and curiosity, the sources say, to every single project. He wasn't just phoning it in.
And the influence.
Yeah.
Huge. His harmonic ideas, the way he navigated rhythm.
It influenced practically every saxophonist who came after him. Branford Marsalis, Chris Potter, countless others. He became this model for younger artists.
Someone who showed you could evolve constantly.
Without ever abandoning your core voice. That's the key.
Though it's worth asking, right, with all that evolution, were there ever moments where his risks didn't quite land? Or was it always smooth sailing with critics and audiences?
That's a fair question. And yeah, like any true innovator, there were bumps. Early Weather Report, for instance, some traditional jazz critics found it too rock, too electric,
Sure.
But his artistic integrity was so strong, and he just kept creating such compelling music that eventually even skeptics came around. He never stopped pushing, even late in his career.
No, definitely not slowing down. That 2018 release, Emanon, was ambitious.
Hugely. A full orchestral suite and a graphic novel to go with it.
Incredible.
And then his final major work, Iphigenia. That modern opera with Esperanza Spalding.
Reimagining classical mythology through improvisation and freedom. Just amazing.
Even at the very end, he was right there, creating on the edge of the known, inviting others to imagine more.
He really never stayed still, did he? Never stopped listening or questioning.
Treating every note as a step toward understanding something larger. It makes you think, that searching quality in his music. How much was conscious crafting, and how much just flowed through him from that deep spiritual well?
That's a really profound thought, because his legacy, it feels like more than just the amazing recordings. It's a whole model for creative life.
Curious, courageous, compassionate.
Yeah. And he proved that in jazz, maybe in art generally, the most powerful path isn't always the loudest or fastest.
Sometimes it's the one that leaves space for silence. So we really encourage you, the listener, to explore his music. Maybe listen specifically for those stories without words he was composing.
Or try to hear how that spiritual journey manifests in the sound, that
Yeah.
searching quality.
Or maybe just put on a record, let the music wash over you and see what new ideas it sparks in you.